interesting NFL news that came out today, and that is that the Cleveland Browns have named Joe Flacco as their starting quarterback without even seeing him play a preseason game for them this season. And that is a move that is over Kenny Pickett and over two rookie quarterbacks in Shedeur Sanders and Dylan Gabriel. And so, Keith, as a Steelers fan and a observer of the AFC North, how does this move make you feel? As a Steelers fan, does it make you happy because you're seeing old man Joe Flacco, who used to haunt you in that division? Or just what's your reaction?
I would tell you this, as a Steelers fan, nothing the Browns could do could make me unhappy because the Browns just have a history of doing everything in their power to get in their own way. So I have no complaint as a Steelers fan. As an NFL fan and being non-biased, I would tell you I think everyone saw this coming. 2 years ago, obviously, they rolled the dice on Flacco, and he had an out-of-body experience down the backstretch of that year, got into the playoffs, obviously got blown out by Houston. What I would say is the Browns see the writing on the wall. The Browns know this season is likely a wash. They're not going to get in the playoffs. If you were ranking every team 1 through 4 in that division right now, obviously you would have the Browns dead last. You would probably go back and forth with the Steelers and the Bengals, so to speak, as far as who's like 2, 3, whatever the case may be. But everyone probably has the Browns in that bottom tier. The Browns are likely going to have 4 quarterbacks on the roster. It really doesn't concern me because at the end of the day, I think everyone knows that they're going to, by the, say, week 6, week 7, they're going to give Sanders or Gabriel an opportunity to see what they can do just because there's so much time with a 17-week season. You're not going to the playoffs. And it's honestly a win-win situation for the Browns, in my opinion, because even if they throw Shedeur Sanders, who I obviously have a lot of praise for, and I think is going to be a quality quarterback in this league going forward, or Dylan Gabriel, who did not have the best game the other day, and they turn out to be, let's just say, best case scenario, fantastic. Great. Shedeur Sanders, Dylan Gabriel, you can build off that promise, that optimism going forward, and maybe if you don't want to take a quarterback in next year's draft, you can go from there. Worst case scenario, if all 4 of these guys, I mean, Kenny Pickett is what he is at this point. Flacco, he's the vet. He's old. You know, you may get 1 or 2 great games out of Flacco at this rate, but he's going to be a game manager at this point because the athleticism has just dwindled. If everybody out of the 4 is just playing garbage, then you go into next year. Obviously, you have a high pick. There's Gary Nussmeier. We don't know about Arch Manning yet, but you're going to have Cade Klubnik. You're going to have at least 3 to 4 guys that could potentially be game-changing quarterbacks. And what is the Browns' game plan? They need a quarterback. They've needed one since they reintegrated into the NFL. They have not been able to get it right. You've seen all the lists and the names of the jerseys. So the Browns know what time they're on. They need a quarterback. They need to find one. And I don't think they're surprising anybody by naming Flacco the starter. Maybe at this point you think if you're just going off wins or losses type of vibe, Flacco gives you the best chance to win. I don't know if that's the case because maybe Shedeur Sanders gives you the best chance to win. We don't know yet. But I think the Browns know what they're getting. They know what they're expecting out of Flacco. I don't think Joe Flacco or anybody thinks Joe Flacco will start every single game for the Cleveland Browns. Really, it's not that big of a deal. But, I mean, every one of the 4 quarterbacks has had injury problems in preseason. So maybe it's just this merry-go-round where whoever's the guy that can throw the ball and has 2 feet is, going to be the starter that week. Who knows? But I think everyone knows just because Joe Flacco is named the starter in week 1, he most likely will not be the starter the whole entirety of the season for the Cleveland Browns.
At least Browns fans could hope for that to be the case because it really is interesting, this move. Because, you don't want to rush out one of your rookie quarterbacks when they may not be ready. And Joe Flacco has shown that he's not quite dead yet. But it's really interesting. And as you said, the Browns are basically planning on this season. They know the quarterback class that's coming in next year. And so, and also, a lot of Browns fans were really upset that they traded out of the Travis Hunter pick. But that gave them the leverage for next year that you were alluding to with next year's QB class. And so it'll be interesting to see who is the Browns quarterback come week 18, because I don't think that they'll be going to the playoffs this year, and we'll get to that a little bit later with our AFC North preview. But it'll be interesting to see who's the starter by the end of the season. Kaz, just what was your reaction to this news that the Browns decided to go with old man Flacco rather than one of their 2 rookie quarterbacks, or even former Philadelphia Eagle Super Bowl champion Kenny Pickett?
Super Bowl champion's crazy. It's from the public eye, everybody's freaking out about it. It's not a big deal. This happens all the time in the NFL. Guys come in, and if they're not NFL ready, they usually sit a year. If they don't sit a year, they sit for a very long time. I mean, he is the anomaly, but let's use Patrick Mahomes, for example. Coming in, he played behind Alex Smith, okay, until Alex Smith got hurt. And then Mahomes came in, put up a decent game, and then the rest is history, right? Mind you, that year, I want to say that was Alex Smith's best year of his career, was the year that Mahomes was drafted in 2017 too, I want to say. I believe he threw for 4,000 some odd yards. I think he like averages anywhere between 3,000, X amount of yards, whatever, a couple injuries here and there. But either way, Mahomes sat a year. Other quarterbacks have sat a year. Even when Jalen Hurts first came in, whether, you thought Carson Wentz was still the guy or not, he sat it. Guys, they sit. And you also see what happens in today's league with guys that start too soon. They have a hard time. Look at the Zach Wilsons. Look at the Sam Darnolds. Look at the Caleb Williams. Who else? Look at you can even talk about second years like C.J. Stroud, sophomore slump, and things like that. Trey Lance, who the hell is he anymore? So it's not like oh my God, Shedeur is not going to get the start, or any of the none of these new guys are going to get the start. They're obviously not NFL ready. I don't think that the Browns would do something like this to really, negatively affect either of these quarterbacks. We got to remember, when these guys are drafted, these aren't Joe Burrows and Lamar Jacksons. These aren't those guys. These guys have, obviously Shedeur, predominantly him. He's very, very popular for a lot of reasons. His dad flipped that the organization in Colorado around tenfold. The public eye was on him and Travis Hunter. It was really fun to watch. And this is coming from someone who's not even a college football fan. Just like anything on television, it's going to boost ratings. It's going to be everywhere. So I think that if it was anybody else outside of Shedeur, this wouldn't even be a topic of conversation. The guy was drafted way late. Whether you agree with that or not, he wasn't a first-round draft pick. I think we all can agree with that. At most, I would say second round. And the fact he didn't go to the second round says a lot about what the NFL execs thought about him, whether you guys think it's from some underlying reasons or whatever. Regardless, he was not a first-round talent quarterback, if you were to ask me. He's in the NFL. This happens. He's going to sit a couple games possibly. And then if they start off, slow, 0-4, 0-5, we're probably going to see a start by week 5 or 6. It's a possibility. But we shouldn't hit the panic button if you're a Shedeur fan. If you're a Browns fan, you shouldn't hit the panic button. I think Keith said it best. The Browns are going to suck. And this isn't coming from someone who doesn't like the Browns. I don't care for the Browns. They don't do anything to my Philadelphia Eagles. I have no sort of loyalty toward their team or any of their players. I believe their favorite player that I've ever seen play is Amari Cooper for me. That's a guy that I like. I mean, I like Nick Chubb. I respect Nick Chubb, but I don't have any sort of relationship with the Browns on a positive level. So just looking at it from a true outside perspective, all bias aside, I think it's very normal. It's just, again, we know who's there. We know that what it's going to look like from the public perspective. And again, ratings. So they're talking about it. Football season's coming up. It's kind of that middle end of the deadness of, okay, is it week 1 yet? So there's going to be a couple more things that are going to happen in the next couple of weeks. All right. You got like Trey Hendrickson out there and stuff who ain't been, he's still trying to get a contract. Do you have things like that to where things are going to happen? You got like Parsons having trouble in Dallas. And so in the next week and a half, you're just going to hear these stories. What's going to happen is probably what's supposed to happen. And I think that in Cleveland, Shedeur not getting the start and Flacco getting a start over the two young kids, it's very normal. So when I saw the news, I was like, okay, not a big deal. If it happened in Philadelphia, I'd have the same reaction. So.
And I think the Browns have bigger problems on an organization level, which is something that Kaz was kind of alluding to. They still haven't signed Quinshon Judkins to a deal. And we don't know what's going to happen with his legal problems. We don't know if he's going to be available at all this year. We just don't know. You just signed Myles Garrett to a big long-term deal. And every day that goes and passes by, you are wasting his prime because you don't have a team right now that you can field. And so there's a lot of variables with the Browns as an organization as a whole where They need to honestly take this year and evaluate from a talent standpoint what they have, what they don't have. And that's partly why, Shaun, they made that trade to bypass Travis Hunter and instead select Mason Graham. Because Mason Graham is an interior lineman. You can play him on all 4 slots on that defensive line. And they need as many pieces as possible to lay the foundation for that team. Because right now, when they stack up, they're definitely not better than the Ravens, who I think are the best team in the division. Even the Bengals, with all of their problems, they still have far more talent than the Browns do. And the Steelers, they're always going to be middle of the pack, in my opinion. They got better talent than the Browns. But the Browns right now, you can make a case, they could be the worst team in the league. And, oh, by the way, Deshaun Watson, what happens if he comes back from the Achilles injury by the end of the year and they have to actually throw him out in the field if he's healthy? What do you do in that situation? You are paying him $300+ guaranteed $1 million. And if they don't want to put him out there, that could turn into a real spicy situation if he feels he's ready and they don't want to pay him and they don't want to put him out there. So the Browns, they're really up a creek without a paddle, so to speak.
Yeah, that's a great point about Deshaun, because the next question that I was going to ask as we close out this topic is, we talked about who may be the starter for the Browns come week 18, but I'm wondering, is Shedeur even going to be in Cleveland by week 18? Because it doesn't feel like Cleveland believes in him. And yeah, he had the injury, and this is to be expected because they don't want to rush him out there. But it felt like Cleveland kind of just drafted him as an asset because they chose Dylan first. And then Shedeur was still there in the 5th round, and they're like, sure, let's take another rookie quarterback who had a first-round valuation. And so that makes me think maybe one of these GMs who passed on him due to character, whatever they want to say, based on his interviews that he had, because the talent on the football field is there. It's just whether or not people could handle him pointing at his nice watch when he's doing nice things on the football field. And so I'm interested to see if Shedeur is even in Cleveland come the end of the season, because not only is there Dylan Gabriel, Flacco, Pickett that we talked about, we don't really have to worry about Flacco as far as it's concerned with long-term, but whether or not Shedeur is still in Cleveland, or another team says, hey, you gave a 5th round pick for Shedeur, we'll give you a 4th just because we want to figure out the future of our quarterback situation. I feel like that's probably more likely of Shedeur being traded than him being a starter by week 18.
I mean, it all comes down to, again, like they literally gave Baker Mayfield the boot out the door for Deshaun Watson. You see what Baker Mayfield is now with a at least somewhat decent front office and organization in Tampa Bay. They've gone to the playoffs 2 years in a row with him as the main guy. I don't think they would want that to happen, but at the same time, like you got to give the Browns credit. They said we've struggled for years drafting one quarterback, signing one quarterback. Let's just draft 2 at the same time and see what happens. I was never high on Dylan Gabriel coming out of Oregon. I just never thought the arm was there. Obviously, listen, there's been plenty of guys undersized that make it in the NFL, but the height scared me. I don't think the athleticism is what it's chalked out to be. He's a lefty, so that's also another thing he's got going against him. But I hope that Shedeur gets the opportunity to show what he can do. That's all I'm asking. Whether it's in Cleveland or someplace else, I just hope he gets an opportunity to show what he can do. Because I really don't think anybody knows what the Browns are doing. If you want my opinion, they're winging this as they go. They're just improvising on the spot.
Yeah, that has been the Cleveland Browns model for decades, and that's why they are who they are and where they are. And before we move on, I wanted to get to a couple of YouTube comments because my 2 co-hosts are tuning in right now. As Jaevon says, Flacco was always going to start. The question is how long before they're 0-4 and they start calling for Sanders, as was said earlier, just about giving him 5-6 weeks and then maybe reevaluating from Flacco. And Jaevon also said, Big Keith in the building. He appreciates you joining us, Keith, and I'm glad to have you on the panel with Kaz and I.
And you're coming on next week, buddy. You can't hide from me forever, so.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Jaevon is in the process of a move right now, just as I was a couple weeks ago, and so that's why he's unable to join us tonight, but he will catch that Keith smoke sooner rather than later.
He's the one guy I like, because some people are anti-Steelers in this whole podcast. I watch, so, Just throw it out there, buddy. But today we'll get into that.
Keith is keeping receipts, and I wanted to get to a couple other YouTube comments from my co-host Kevin, who says, "You look great." I was referring to when I was asking if I was buffering or not. Glad to hear that my new Wi-Fi is going strong. And Kevin also says, "Can't wait to be back with the crew Monday. # Fly Eagles Fly," as he gets a nod of agreement from Kaz. And